Hey guys, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! Resolve. In the last episode, we had a bold claim to make. And that led the jurors to, condemn our defendant. And now we are here at the summation examination. So without further ado, let's just get into it. The jurors' contentions.
I know that the woman for years. She'd never been an accomplice to anything. It's utter nonsense to think those two would ever be conniving with one another.
Oh dear, this is most troubling. But surely the waxwork the man stole has nothing to do with the corona, is it?
I have had my own problems with members of the police. I do not trust them much.
I've seen no rigorous proof that this waxwork was ever inside the birdcage. It's conjecture.
Accusing someone without right evidences is not a proper job, is it? I won't have it.
Somewhat unsurprisingly, it seems the introduction of this waxwork model to the proceedings has polarized opinion. Given that its face is obscured and its build in no way resembles that of the victim, I can only applaud my learned friend's temerity at suggesting it as Mr. Asman's body double. Yes, the applause is deafening, and yes, I know it seems extraordinary. But that's the point. That's why I have a strong feeling it's actually a greater clue than anyone yet realizes.
What are you thinking, Mr. Naruto?
I can't explain why at the moment, but I feel as though there's a specific reason why it was used, why it had to be this model.
Really? A reason why nothing else would do, you mean?
Yes, and I'm convinced it's something far more significant than whether or not the model looked like the victim.
Well, if that's the case, we must prevent the trial from ending prematurely at all costs.
Yes, I agree. I have to find a way out of this. If you are ready, counsel, you may proceed with the summation examination. Yes, my lord. Well, jury examination. Okay, the defense's rebuttal.
I've known the woman for years. She'd never been an accomplice to anything.
Hold it!
The order of things seem to have changed around here for some reason.
I'm a couple, lad. It's a couple's discretion to bend the rules sometimes when needs must. What's wrong with that?
Where do I start?
I've been working at the Hall for 40 odd years.
That's even more than I thought.
We've only had a metropolitan police service in town for 70 years, you know. Of course, times have changed. The public didn't trust couples back when I started. It was rough. We had to fight crime, and we had to fight to win the public trust as well. And when we did, forensic science was in its infancy too, even more than it is now, and she spearheaded the revolution.
Dr. Scythe, you mean?
That's right. About 10 years ago now it was, when I was still a youngish Bobby Etten on the beach. That's when she started making a name for herself as a top-class coroner.
Okay, then she's very old.
And now look at her, head of the forensic investigation team, and a woman no less. Well, you won't hear me complain. It's what we all dreamt of back then, I tell you.
Could you tell me without holding that gun in the air?
We were all double justice, lad. Full of whim, we were full of whim.
That's coming across loud and clear.
It's utter nonsense to think those two would ever be conniving with one another.
Hold it!
But we're only just starting to understand this case. What are you reading there, sir?
The man behind those murders on Solar Pond Street was caught in 2 days' flood. That's real policing for you.
That's really not relevant to this case, is it?
You're wrong there. Because it was Dr. Scythe in charge of examining the body. And it was evidence arising from her work that led to the arrest of scoundrels responsible.
Oh.
That's right. Oh, that woman is at the forefront of this country's fight against crime. The idea that she's somehow involved in this murky business is a lot of old tush.
I thought it was up to me to press the jurors, not the other way around.
Oh dear, this is most troubling, but surely the waxwork man the man stole has nothing to do with the corona, is it?
Hold it! Why would you assume that?
Well, quite simply because that unsettling swindler has no relationship with a woman, does she?
True, as it stands, we don't know of any connection.
Oh gosh, but it would be delightfully romantic if they were somehow to have a mutual interest in the waxwork.
Romantic?
A woman of society such as myself views everything in terms of relationships, you know?
Well, you learn something new every day, even if you don't want to.
One might wonder about a possible relationship between the defendant and this corona woman. Or perhaps between the defendant and the handsome prosecutor just there.
This woman may be more astute than I've been giving her credit for.
If that's the woman's stance, then perhaps demonstrating some connection between the waxwork and Dr. South would be enough.
Yes, I agree. As soon as we have a whiff of a connection, she'll be the first to know. Well, okay, so she is very important. I just have to make a mental note of it. She is very important. I mean, we do have that glass, the part of glass of the glass tower. Doesn't matter, we have to keep pressing.
I
I have had my own problems with members of police. Do not trust them much.
Hold it! What sort of problems?
Let's just say we have run into each other on numerous occasions while I've been performing on the street.
Right, I see.
Obviously, artists such as myself cannot appear on stage as we work in close proximity to our audiences. So we perform our great magics in parks, on street corners, and the like. But the police use any excuse to make our lives difficult.
Excuse me. So we're gonna pursue that for sure. Do you have something to say in response to that, Mr. Ottomo?
Who are you calling a mass murderer?
Sorry, my mistake. I got confused because I heard you look like him.
Oh, I don't look anything like the man. You want to be locked up, sonny?
Thanks, Mr. Shams. Perhaps we could move on? I was really wondering if you had something you wanted to add in response to what juror number 3 just said.
And clearly you do.
Back in my day, back in the good old days, it wasn't like this.
What was it like, sir?
We worked our fingers to the bone to earn the public's trust we need. And by Jove, we earned it. People respected us back then.
Respected you?
No one would have called the corona into question in them days. The coroner's report was the hallmark of an investigation done right. Especially when Dr. Courtney Stevens put her name to it. She was the best of the best, and they upheld the forces.
Hold on a minute. What are you talking about? Who's Courtney Stevens?
Oh, sorry. Got a bit carried away there.
Stevens is Dr. Scyther's maiden name.
Her maiden name, so that was before she was married.
Of course, yes. Silly me. It's Scythe now, isn't it?
Stevens. I'm sure I've seen that name somewhere recently. Have we? Wait a second. Stevens. Stevens. I really don't know right now, guys. Well, we will figure it out on the way.
Anyway, the point is, those were the great days of policing, not like now.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. But do you think you could change your statement to include that name?
Well, yes, I don't see why not. She was Courtney Stevens back when I knew her, of course. Angelica Corona even then.
So we could press him, but just a second. There we go. The professor, Courtney Stevens. So she was also the person that actually coronaed. So she was the coroner that inspected the body of the professor. Okay, let's just go back to this person here, because we already talked to them, and we'll just skip forward to the part where we left off before we pursued.
But the police use any excuse to make our lives difficult. Sometimes they even cook up a story to extort monies from the poor.
Well, that's definitely not right.
Yes, and it is why I say that if you trust the police, you will have trouble. But here you are, claiming this waxwork model was stolen to star in an illusionary spectacular. The idea is so wild, I think I will take my chances and believe the authorities on this occasion.
This is how the public at large views Scotland Yard, is it?
Our own police force in Tokyo is not even 20 years old yet, is it? Perhaps we should view what's happened here in London as a measure of what may happen at home.
Yes, like a Scotland Yard yardstick. I wonder how a policeman would feel listening to the way this juror speaks about the force. I'm sure he'd have a word or two to say in response. Is that so? I've seen no... Okay, let's just press him first.
I've seen no rigorous proof that this waxwork was ever inside the birdcage. It's conjecture.
But you claimed the whole instantaneous killer system demonstration was a trick.
That I did, but there's more than one way to pull a rabbit out of a hat, isn't there?
Sorry?
I grant you, given that this cage appeared from amidst an explosion, there have been no need to use a reinforcer. But if a waxwork had been used, the culprit could at least have had the decency to make it look like the victim.
I'm not sure exactly how much criminals are governed by decency.
The point is, if you're going to make a claim about the waxwork being inside the birdcage, you need to give us some evidence. Without that, it's just not science.
I suppose we should expect nothing less than a logical argument from a fellow of the Royal Society. But that perhaps means his mind could be changed if we manage to present suitable evidence.
Evidence that the Professor Waxwork was inside that birdcage. Can I produce that or not? Well, I do think that we actually can, because we have... Wait a second. What is it called? The glass thingy, the piece of piece of broken glass. So we do have that. So let's just say I have evidence. Actually, I have something I'd like you to see, sir.
Oh, I must warn you that I firmly believe it's only wise to trust men in white coats. So given your jet black outfit, I don't mind admitting to a sense of trepidation here.
So you don't trust anyone in black? Looking in the mirror must be very trying. I do have some evidence that proves the waxwork was inside the birdcage, namely, because we got that small fragment of very unusual and thick glass that was found in the folds of the clothing of the Professor Waxwork. It would appear to be from the Crystal Tower.
Take that!
What's that? A piece of glass? So it's unusually thick or thick for glass.
Yes, it's a piece of broken glass that we found inside the jacket on the waxwork. As you say, it's not ordinary glass though. It's very thick and clearly made for extra strength. Much like the special glass that was developed for the construction of the Crystal Tower.
The Crystal Tower? Holy smoke!
Exactly. The centerpiece of the Great Exhibition where the very incident we're talking about took place. On the day in question, the birdcage fell from above and smashed through a window of that special glass.
From which this small piece originated. Is that it?
Precisely. So, what do you say? Now, that clear evidence is in support of the assertion has been placed before you.
Well, as I said, I only trust men in white coats as a rule. However, when the reasoning is sound, it's fair to say color shouldn't come into it. In light of what you've shown me here, yes, I feel obliged to change my position on the matter.
In that case, juror number 4, you will amend your test statement now, please.
The presence of that piece of glass leaves me a little doubt that the waxwork was indeed inside that birdcage.
So, So let's press him for a second first, because thank you for reconsidering your position, sir.
Your words are misplaced, boy. My opinion is governed by logic and science and nothing else. Yes, science's writers should direct the words for gratitude. What's the matter with you? Do you get to say some words of thanks to the mother of all academic subjects?
What is it about scientists? Honestly. Okay, that's funny. Okay, we're gonna,
Accusing someone without right evidence is not a proper job. I see. Easy. I won't have it.
Okay, so let's press first. I've got to ask, why have you brought that corn into court with you?
Call the cop. He's been growing back on the farm. Picked him off on my way into town. He's a proper nibbler. He is.
Yes, the nibbling seems to be taking quite a while. Maybe it could wait until after the trial?
Oh, I don't like the sound of that. You need colonels at times like these. When I have something big to decide, the colonels always point me in the right direction, see?
You're talking about your cup of corn?
Nibble, 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 guilty in a bubble, nibble and I'm not guilty out. Nibble, nibble, guilty in a bubble, nibble, not guilty out. Nibble, nibble, guilty, bubble, nibble, not guilty out. Nibble, nibble, guilty in a bubble, nibble, not guilty out.
Perhaps it's akin to fortune telling with flower petals like people do back home.
So Professor Harebrain's fate is to be decided by a cob of corn? Could you not at least wait until we've had more time to find the truth before deciding on the defendant's guilt?
Oh, I don't know about that. Midterms are awfully full already.
Amazing. I know it seems a little far-fetched to think that the waxwork model of the professor was in that birdcage, but on the other hand, it explains a lot.
If there really is a reason why that particular waxwork had to be used as Mr. Asman's double, we must do everything we can to make the jurors understand it.
The truth is, I'm sure that's the key to this, but it's the most puzzling part of it too.
In that case, you should see what additional information you can glean whilst trying to change the jurors' minds. If you can read a book whilst eating a rice cracker, Stenodo, I'm sure you can do this.
Right, yes. Okay. So... Wait a second. Okay, so he says it's utter nonsense to think those two would ever be conniving with one another, right? Wait a second, so she says, oh dear, this is most troubling, but surely the wax woman has stole nothing to do with the corona, is it? But he says... Okay, so she says, she says this. Oh dear, this is the most troubling, but surely the waxwork man, the man stole is nothing to do with the corona. But he says she was Courtney Stevens back when I knew her, a legendary corona even then. So I think they're supposed to be pitted against each other. So let's do that. Those two statements clearly contradict each other.
Good gracious! Those two statements to whose statements do you refer, counsel?
So juror number 2.
Oh gosh, me, what can I do for you?
I presume that you heard what juror number 6 said in his statement. It's brought to light the maiden name of the coroner, Dr. Scythe, which in turn has revealed a connection that wasn't apparent before.
Well, naturally, as a woman of society, I find such connections and relationships irresistible.
Sorry.
But oh golly, I'm afraid I failed to see what you mean.
Dr. Scythe's maiden name is Stevens, and through that name, the corona is very definitely linked to the waxwork of the killer. The defense has evidence to prove it.
My goodness, evidence you say? How utterly enthralling.
Counsel, the court cannot overlook the last remark. I very much hope there is substance to your claim.
Of course, my lord. I would ask the court to look at this. The evidence that clearly links Dr. Scythe to the mass murder known as the Professor, and this is where Inspector Gregson comes to our rescue because he gave this to us.
Take that!
I have here a certain autopsy report from 10 years ago.
A 10-year-old autopsy report? What relevance does that have? It is, of course, from the autopsy of the person portrayed in the waxwork, the killer known as the Professor.
The professors, but the man was a capital offender, so...
That's right. This is the certification of death that was drawn up after the convict's execution. The identity of the killer was never made public, so the report gives few details. But what's important is the name of the coroner who wrote it. Courtney Stevens.
Oh my! Courtney Stevens!
Strike a light!
It appears that the professor's autopsy was conducted by Dr. Scythe 10 years ago. And a few days ago, Mr. Drebber very deliberately stole the waxwork of the professor from Madame Tussbells. A waxwork that doesn't in fact resemble the victim, Mr. Asman, at all.
And do you suppose there's some unsavory relationship between those events?
Absolutely, I'm sure of it. There's no doubt in my mind that the professor case is at the heart of a link that we have yet to uncover. Between Dr. Courtney Scythe and Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Hidden links, mysterious connections, secret relationships. This is almost extraordinary. We're surely obliged now to explore this further.
There we go.
Quite right, we can't let this trial come to an end now. Not while there's this cloud of suspicion hanging over the yard's best corona. It was like this in my day, but we're still here to uphold justice in the end.
It's the professor that... okay. So there we go. With members of the police, I do not trust them much. Presence of that piece of glass leaves me in little doubt. Accusing someone without right evidences, I won't have it. Wait a second. So, So are we supposed... Wait a second, so... If we go like this... I mean, these do contradict each other, don't they? This doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense, but these two... Accusing someone without right evidences is not a proper job, is he? I won't have it. The presence of the piece of glass leaves me in little doubt that the waxwork was indeed inside that birdcage. So I have a feeling that these two are supposed to be pitted against each other. Are they? Because this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. So it must be these two.
Objection!
Okay, apparently we're right. Cool. Those two statements clearly contradict each other.
Good gracious, those two statements, to whose statements do you refer, counsel?
If you could put down your corn for a moment, juror number 5.
Oh, you made me!
You've pointed out that it's wrong to make an accusation without evidence, but the accusation that the waxwork model was inside the second birdcage on the day in question is not without supporting evidence, as the defense demonstrated to the juror sitting beside you.
Is that right?
Would it be fair to say you didn't follow the argument?
I don't understand what you said, Corn and Cub, to be honest.
Of course you don't.
If I could interject here.
Please do, sir.
Now that this assertion of yours about the waxworks has been backed up by some solid evidence, it would be wrong of me as a man of science not to pursue the matter further.
Well, me too then.
Sorry?
If this brainy gentleman says he's right, then he must be. See, I wouldn't dream of going against Colonel Cabo or anyone who's gotten stuff between the ears.
Alright, we did it, guys. We actually did it. We actually did it. Success! You say it, bro. If you could call it that. Okay, we did it. It was a little convoluted, but we did it. Thank you, Counsel. That will do. As a result of the summation examination, the jury's overall leaning has changed. 2 jurors now call guilty, against 4 who call not guilty. Accordingly, the court has failed to reach a consensus at this time. And the trial must continue.
We did it.
Oh, well done, Mr. Naruto. Another wonderful victory.
A waxwork of the despicable professor, used as a body double for the victim in this quite extraordinary case. I must say it's extremely hard to believe the assertion could possibly be true. However, it would appear that it does at least warrant further investigation.
It's the waxwork of the professor that links Mr. Drebber and Dr. Scythe. And I'm convinced that there's a special significance to that link.
I don't know what you're hoping to prove, lad. I really don't.
The truth, sir? By using evidence and testimony?
If the court is to delve deeper into the alleged involvement of that waxwork in this case, then the prosecution calls for the owner of the model to be summoned as a witness.
The owner?
Madame Tuspels.
I really thought that Lord Von Zix would object to this whole line of inquiry.
Very well, I concur. Make arrangements for the Madame Tuspels to appear as a witness with immediate effect.
Listen carefully, my learned friend.
Oh, yes?
You should know that you're on the brink of opening Pandora's box.
The court shall now adjourn for 45 minutes. During that time, the prosecution will summon the new witness and prepare her for taking the stand.
Madame Tuspels, yes, I shall see to it at once, my lord.
Ooh, okay. Alright, perfect timing, because we are closing the half-hour mark. We haven't reached it yet, but I mean, it's a perfect situation, a perfect opportunity to end this episode. If you want to see what Madame Tuspels has to tell us, you'll have to tune in next time for the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Resolve. See you then.